Religious historian and scholar Houston Smith once wrote, "The great religions all teach us that appearances notwithstanding, reality is unified." Seems like a very Unitarian Universalist thing to say, doesn't it? One of the core values of our faith is interdependence. The very real notion that despite all of our diversity and the differences that abound in life around us, we are all connected. Everything is ultimately connected. Now, several years ago, I was serving a UU congregation down in Texas, and I was asked to offer a sermon about Bodhi Day. Bodhi Day is the annual observance for Buddhists of that moment when Siddhartha, the historic Buddha, is said to have sat under that tree and reached enlightenment. For the closing hymn of that particular service, I chose a song from our teal hymnal called "The Oneness of Everything." This lovely hymn, written by Unitarian Universalist composer Jim Scott, seemed like the perfect fit to go with my message. Well, I introduced the song, we all stood up, and we all began to sing. Or I should say, we tried to sing. It turns out that the piano accompaniment in our hymnal contains no melody line. The song has a somewhat irregular rhythm, and it's kind of incredibly hard to follow unless you can sight read music with great skill. Now, if you have been to more than a few Sunday services here at All Peoples, you will know that this happens from time to time here as well, right? Occasionally we are singing some hymn or some popular music song that I've picked, and we all seem to lose our place in the song, right? Or the slides to the lyrics get mixed up, or just something else happens. And what do? And we kind of try to grin and bear it, right? And do our best and just keep going to the end of the song. On that particular morning in Texas, I remember thinking, perhaps this musical mess is actually some Buddhist lesson about the need to let go and surrender to the flow of life, right? I also remember thinking that the oneness of everything looks really good on paper, but maybe it's not so simple when we try to practice it. When I hear Houston Smith talk about unity, I shake my head in agreement. I tell myself, it's not just a good idea, it's the truth. But when we really try to live that truth out, it can be easy to get lost in the irregular rhythms. At times, it can be hard to find and follow that melody of life. Life is easier to sing along with when it has some order that we can identify, when we can see the patterns and find a repeating chorus that feels familiar and that we can hang on to when it comes back around again. One of the ways that we cope with all of the seeming complexity and chaos around us is to categorize things, to split life up into smaller bits, to group the bits, to name them, and to label them. We have learned this from science. All of you scientists out there this morning know that much of the enjoyment and the discipline of science comes from identifying a phenomenon, classifying it, analyzing it, and then studying it by itself and then in relationship to some other phenomenon. Adoption of this scientific method has fueled human progress for centuries now. It has allowed us to use the gifts of reason and experience in powerful ways, leading to great leaps in our understandings of where we are, how we are, and who we are. Whether we think of ourselves as scientists or not, this approach influences the way that we all grasp and analyze the world and our place in it. Categorizing what we encounter as a joy or a sorrow, as a success or a failure, as a good thing or a bad thing, has become the default way that we consider what happens to us every day. And as communication and technology increasingly takes over our lives, we are bombarded with more and more information, more and more experiences to try to sort through. So we have learned to categorize and to specialize, to select which categories to invest ourselves in and which to try to ignore. I once heard somebody say that if they want to know what is happening, they turn on CNN. If they want to know whose fault it is, they turn on MSNBC or maybe Fox News, right? The algorithms that rule our social media landscape are completely built on categorizing people by interests and by experiences. Capitalism runs on the premise of marketing products by demographics, separating people into columns and spreadsheets. We live in a world today where many of us pick and choose our friends on Facebook. We get to select exactly what music we want to hear, what movies we want to watch, what experiences we want to have at the click of a button. It's all instantly available on demand. Now, all this can be a great thing. Yet all of this compartmentalization, separating out life into categories, picking and choosing, it also allows us to increasingly avoid the things that we don't want to hear about. We can focus almost exclusively on what we enjoy and what confirms and supports the things that we already believe. Now, today we categorize some things in this life and in this place as religious, right? This church, the chalice, the hymns, the choir, etc., right? And we categorize other things as not really religious. Now, some people have such a narrow definition of religion that they would not even put us Unitarian Universalists in that category, right? Since we don't solely focus on one theological belief, but rather embrace many ideas about God, we're not a religion, at least to them. You know, this categorization of religion versus secular is something relatively new in human history. In their book, Many People, Many Faiths, Robert Elwood and Barbara McGraw write this: in the West, we tend to think of religion as a phenomenon, more or less different from the public life of work and politics and popular art and culture. However, it may surprise us to discover that in most cultures around the world and through time, there was not even a word to identify religion as something differentiated from the society and the culture as a whole. The use of the word religion to refer to a separate institution did not develop until the 19th century. Now, but today, of course, we do see religion as something separate, something that stands above and below possibly the rest of the things that we do, depending on our perspective. Religion is just one of many compartments of life. And here in this congregation, even within the realm that we call religion, we compartmentalize as well. In our efforts to get organized, to accomplish things, we have divided up responsibilities and programs here into a whole host of categories. Some activities fall under social justice. Other things we call social events, right? Some programs are religious exploration, and others are music or administration. And even within our efforts, for social justice. We have separate groups for environmental justice, racial justice, international justice. What we're doing here in the sanctuary right now, right, we call that worship. What our children, our young people are doing out in the kitchen, we call that family ministry. This categorizing seems to work, at least to an extent. It helps us get organized, it helps us focus and share the work and the life of this congregation broadly, and I think pretty successfully. There is no doubt that All Peoples is a happening place these days, with lots of great opportunities for all of us to be engaged and involved. And yet, at times, all of this compartmentalization can seem to take on a life of its own. And for better or worse, it can end up dividing us up into small special interest groups who can and often do struggle to feel connected in their efforts to the larger congregation as a whole. Somebody asked me the other day what I would like to see happen here at All Peoples in the coming years. And one of the things that came to my mind was that I would love us to find ways to engage and involve the entire congregation in more of our activities. I think right now we do so many amazing things here at All Peoples, but we often think of them at least, and even do them in small, segregated groups, and not together as a broader, beloved community. Unitarian Universalism tells us that everyone and everything is connected, and therefore everything and everyone within our church community is connected as well. One of the ways that I think that we can continue to grow in living into our faith more fully is to begin to break down some of this compartmentalization and categorization right here at church. To embrace that oneness of everything by learning to see everything that we do as interrelated, as woven together by a larger mission and vision that we share. If you think of it, rarely, probably if ever, is some project that we undertake simply about racial justice and nothing else. Almost always, it may be focused on racial justice, but it probably involves economic justice, it might involve access to health care, it might involve all kinds of different things. It probably might involve exploring, giving, sharing, offering care, community building. Sometimes it might even include eating and music and more. Recognizing the intersections between and among all of the activities we do can make them more meaningful. You know, we have an active membership team whose responsibility it is to welcome newcomers and to help newer folks connect into our church family. But of course, being welcoming, being valuing is not just a task for those folks on that team. It is a role, a joyful role for all of us all the time. We have dedicated volunteers who generously spend their Sunday mornings with our children and youth, helping to lead family ministry activities. Yet the joy and the enrichment of spending time with our young people cannot be an experience that only a few of us get to have. When we decide that our congregation is going to go and participate in some rally or protest or public witness action, showing up is not just something that those people on those justice committees do, right? It's actually an opportunity for every one of us to actively practice liberation and love, not only for others, but for ourselves, as we all face injustice and oppression together. Now, it may sound like I am up here telling you that you need to get to work, that you need to do more, to be more involved, but that is not my message at all. To me, and I hope to you as well, one of the most wonderful aspects of being part of a diverse, multicultural, religious community like this congregation is that it offers us endless chances to learn something new, to meet someone new, to experience whole categories of life that may be outside of what we are familiar with. To me, that is what being a Unitarian Universalist is all about. Being open to being transformed and always seeking out growth and possibilities and especially connections. Our living faith is not a religion for Sunday morning. It is a set of values and perspectives that we are called to embody in our personal lives, in our work lives, in our family lives, as much as we can. Breaking down those barriers that we imagine between categories and compartments in our interactions, not just here, but in all of life, helps to make life deeper, helps us to live in more authentic relationship. None of us are simply one-dimensional in our identities, right? No one else is either. You know, you might be a social justice warrior, a caring presence, a cook, a gardener, a singer, a teacher, a parent, a willing learner. You might be all those things all at the same time. You might feel like a newcomer in certain places in your life and an experienced veteran in other circumstances. You may be a helper to someone in need and also be desperately in need of some support at times yourself. It's all still you. It's all still connected. And it's all good. You know, this world can be a pretty isolating place. There are so many cultural forces that are telling us, stay in your lane. Live only within certain categories and identities. See life as compartmentalized and separated up. These days, too many of us are feeling alone, in despair and fear and dismay, alone in hope as well. May this church community be a place where we find the freedom to be all that we are, that you find the freedom to be all that you are. And may it inspire us to embrace others for all that they are. May we feel that force of love which flows in and about everything, which pulls us not apart, but together. And in doing so, may the connections and the intersections we find bring us together like never before. I'm going to end this morning with a quote from the lyrics of that song by Jim Scott, "The Oneness of Everything." Now, I'm going to read these words to you because we have already established that singing them is a little bit difficult. So, the song says this: "Still we seek to find a truth that we might understand and reduce to terms defined. Vast and immeasurable time and space, all so overwhelmingly designed. Like the birds whose patterns grace the sky and carry all who join in love expanding. To hear and feel the pulse of life enters my soul as a song to sing, a song of the oneness of everything. So may it be, and amen.